Welcome back to Allison Customs Project Car TV. I'm Jeff Allison, and thank you for watching.
So welcome back to Allison Customs Project Car TV. Today I have a little project. So for those of you who aren't watching some of the other videos, I broke my ankle a week and a half ago or so. Because of that, I'm kind of been pretty limited on my mobility. I got the walking boot, but even that, my ankle can't take a whole lot of up and down and movement yet. So I'm kind of trying to get a few things done. Mostly it's been work on electrical stuff, new diagrams and that kind of thing that's busy work that needs to get done, but doesn't make for an interesting video. Anyway, so one of the things that in the process that I need to do is I need to program this little box here, and I'll zoom in on that in just a second. But this box is a Lingenfelter part. And what it does is it takes information from the ECM and converts that information to a signal that we can use for our gauges. And to do some programming on that, you've got to plug this cord in. Well, I mounted this box here, got it all wired up really pretty, powered up. Went thinking that the plug was on the bottom here, which it's not. Took that off, and it's actually on the back side of the box. So we got to come up with a different solution. But my idea for right now is to take the box off, unscrew it, and then lay it up flat, horizontal to the ground, or to the floor of the car, pretty close kind of, and make a bracket that'll do that, and then this cord can plug in underneath it. And you might be kind of awkward to reach, but at least you could reach it from underneath the dash that way, rather than right now you would have to take bolts out of it, pull the thing out far enough, plug it in. Great if I was going to be a lazy man, or if it was already programmed and you never were going to have to touch it again, which neither of those are the case. So let's zoom you in so you can see what I'm working on, and we'll figure out how to build a bracket for this thing. Like I said, this is a Lingenfelter part, and if you're interested, it's part number CAN2-002, and it doesn't plug into the CanBus or the OBD2 port, but if you like, here's the OBD2 port. I haven't mounted it yet. The twisted pair of wires on here are all it needs for a signal off the ECM, or to be able to talk back and forth to the ECM for information. So what I've done is, on our particular engine harness, engine harness, not only did they give us an OBD2 port, but up the line a little ways they had a split off with a secondary set of the same twisted pair that feeds the OBD2, just essentially split off and split and twisted again. So that twisted pair, and what I mean by twisted pair is, like, you can see this wire here, it's a pair of wires that are twisted, and that helps shielding to keep interference out of them. So now what I'm thinking I want to do is, because the port we need access to, so it's interesting that Lingenfelter, or whoever they're having build this box for them, chose this kind of setup, because it's not like the box is watertight. It's got a giant hole down here where all the wires come out. Although programming is only needed, until you get, it's got 4 channels. So you have the twisted pair input from the ECM, and then you have 4 outputs that you can program for whatever you want. And we're planning, rather than having to put extra sensors all over the engine, now there's our port that we want access to. So I'm just going to mark the location of that, put a hole here big enough that we can plug this cord in, and then we'll build a mount that has a corresponding hole, and will let us mount this over here flat at a little bit of an angle You'll be able to get it up fairly high, and then you can reach your hand in, plug it in, because the dash comes across right here, so you'll be able to get in. Like I said, it'll be a little tight, but completely accessible. So let me get something and measure the rough dimensions of that. We'll lay this out. I'm going to just work off of the corner, the 90-degree corner where the little bolt hole is. That should be more than enough. And I can use this corner of the box as my reference. And we don't really care about the measurement, just we're going to use the caliper as a, and that's about center of the unit. So that's the measurement we actually got. And we'll go this direction. And there's about center that way, which is right there. So there's our center point. And then what we need to know is the diameter of our hole can be something in 0.330 range and should not exceed, if it exceeds ½ an inch, we're going to get into the outer edge of the box. So let's see, that's 492. We'll just go to half that, so be 245, 246. We'll just lock in 245, and that's basically our diameter that we can, that's the largest diameter we can have, which is going to just clear the mounting hole and everything else. Now the other thing we got to look at is this, the plug that's got to go in there, and we could probably, I mean, it's just a, I think that's called a mini USB. It's 377 by 295. Diameters for the corner is 430. So if we did 430, which would be 215 radius, we'd get in there. You know, if we could do a rectangular hole easily, I think that'll be our solution. Instead of drilling a round hole here and having a lot of slop, and I mean, there's nothing really around this, but dust and other stuff could collect in there over time. Instead of that, we'll throw this plate up on the mill, we'll center up on that point, and then we'll mark us out a rectangle, or real close to a rectangle, just slightly larger than the end of this plug. That'll work, and then we can build our bracket to hold this in place. Alright, so we're over here at the mill, a little well on the ways. Our mill is due for a cleaning. Need a way to clamp this down, but we've got to leave area underneath it so we can have a mill bit go through there. So let's see what we've got that'll help us do this. We had something like that. I've got to get some smaller hole downs. That's a little excessive. That's maybe not quite tall enough. That's a little better. We can do the same thing on this side. Try and stay far enough away from where we want to work. Let's try flipping this around this way. Yeah, that'll let us get a little more support further under there, and we can get a little further up on it. That would look good. T-book nuts. Alright, so what I was looking for, I want to use this bit. It's a 3/16. What I was after was, I know these aren't called chucks, but for whatever reason I cannot think of the proper word right now. The smallest one I have is a 3/8, and this is a 3/16 mil on a 1/4 inch shank. So, not going to work. Another reason, you know, I'm constantly adding tools to different locations. Well, there you go. Another reason I need to add a 1/4 inch one of these. I have all the way up, I think this is a 1/2, 3/8, and I think I have a, yeah, and I have a 5/8. So I'm going to make that one of my next investments, I guess. There's a few more tools for this. So for now, we're going to use the drill chuck. But unfortunately, the drill chuck sits up in there fairly tight, or fairly close, so I'm not entirely certain that we can get the drill chuck. Yeah, we can't get it down far enough. So we need to rethink our mounting solution. There's our solution. Double stackable.
All because I decided a rectangular hole would be much better than a round hole. What I'm gonna do.
Let's line up as best I can on center. So actually, let's take this one step further. We're gonna go one step further before we think about running that bit in, that mill in there. Let's run, find us the center. And I think I'm going to move you to the other side so you'll actually be able to keep, you'll be able to see. So I'm just going to use the point of that to get dead on our center. And going back to our plug, we need it to be 377 width. So that'll be from that side to this side towards me. We need 377. So we'll probably go. We're gonna go 400 because that leaves just a little bit of room to play with getting it in there. So we need 400 by, call it 320. So 400 by 320. That's about right on the speed. See if we can get down through it. think we have it. There we go. Very nice. So that's one tiny step of this project. So take this out of here, and I'm going to use it as a pattern for making our bracket, so we won't screw it right back onto the car yet. But I'm going to go ahead and get it out of here and get set up for making our bracket, and then I'll get back to you. So step 2 of our bracket is the design. I guess it's step 1 of the bracket, step 2 of what we're doing today. So I went in there and measured between the boxes where that are mounted on the firewall versus where I had this box mounted, the Lingenfelter box, on that. It's on kind of a well, it's on a 135 degree angle, so, or 45 degrees off of the firewall. So we need, let's see, if I draw it the right way, this would be like this. So yeah, so I'm going to draw it this way. The short side there, the long side there. Okay, so this side is our firewall. And this is the area that we need to mount to. And what I want to do, I think, because I've already put 2 nut zerts in here that, well, these 2 holes here mounted to. So what I want to do is come off of these, and so if we're looking kind of down on it as if you were looking down through the windshield, I want to make a bracket that spans those 2 bolt holes, and then I want it to come out at an angle and it needs to just come off at a 45. And we'll come all the way out here to this end. So disregard that line. I want to come off at an angle, and obviously I should have started drawing to scale to begin with. So let's extend this. We'll come out here to there, come out here to here, be able to center it up. Okay. Disregard all of these lines. This is looking down, you're seeing the thickness of the metal. And this doesn't have, I mean, there's not a whole lot of weight here, so we can make this out of sheet metal. What I'm thinking though is then that box could lay, and I think it'd actually go this direction, lay like that, so we can stop here. Round these corners off, and we can bolt then down through this making our, must go that way, making our bracket or our box lay flat, and instead of it coming out at a 45 and coming way out here into an area where the back of the dash is at, and we've got an air conditioning vent there and all kinds of other stuff. If we can get it over here like this, I think we'll, we can put a big hole or something there just to keep stuff from collecting on top of it. So there's our top view design. Okay, so what you can see here is a laid flat version of this, and what I'm going to try and describe it. So dimensionally, from this point to this point is 3 inches, which from that point to this point out here, here to here is 3 inches. We don't care what the length of this leg is, because we know we need a 90-degree corner here, and we know because from the firewall to the angle, so if I lay it out here, from the firewall to the angle where the mount is 135 degrees or 45 degrees, depending on whether you're measuring the inside or the outside. So what we need is, when this mount is laying here, to get this angle, this would be, we would normally 135 degrees also, or 45 degrees on the top end. So 135 degrees here or 45 degrees there. So I started drawing way back here. I basically laid out a line across the top, and this became my straight line, because there's not a straight line left, a factory edge left on this piece of cardboard. So I drew a straight line. That became my work from everything line. Once I had that, then I drew a parallel line to it, which was this line, and that gave me my mount, this location. So I was going to start back here, and then I realized I don't need this to lay in there and have lots of room above it to get to the bolt holes or anything. It can be pretty snug. So I moved this line in, and I needed to get out here onto the paper. So from here to here is 1.5 inches. Then I laid my 135 degree line off of this parallel, and I just drew a straight line. I went up here, I transferred this point up here, which means this is 1.5 inches, and another 135 degree line, or 45 degrees, however you want to measure it, depending on which side you're going to measure. Made that. These two are parallel, and when I measured, I've already forgotten the number, but I measured it, and it's it was 2 3/4 inches that I needed. So it didn't matter, because I knew I needed 4 inches up here to get so I measured this line to begin with, the mount line. That gave me the dimension going this way. When I drew this, I think I worked it backwards. I laid this on here. I said, okay, I need a line here and a line here. Wherever they end up on this 45, that's the length of the mount side. So whichever way you work from, this ends up being 4 inches. This ends up being 2 3/4. And then once I laid this in here and looked at where it was going to bend, I had quite a bit of overhang out here. So all I did was shorten it up, and I just did that about to there, and then drew a parallel or a perpendicular line off the two sides. So if you're looking at this, we're going to delete this. We're going to cut here, 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 cut all the way back to here. We're going to bend it on this line so that this is 45 degrees to this. The bend will be 90 degrees, but this plate will be 45 degrees to that plate. I'll cut it out of the paper, go test fit it. Then we'll come back, and if we need to make, some adjustments for clearance, we can do that on the cardboard before we cut it out. So I went back to forth to the car about half a dozen times, and I ended up trimming off over 1 inch off of this side, and then I rounded the corners, and that got it to where it would go far enough, I guess, closer to you if you were in the driver's seat, moving closer to the back of the side of the actual dash, to clear all the other component boxes that are mounted to the firewall. But then I only had one hole over here that I was gonna, one of the bolt holes I was gonna be able to, actually it was almost center. So I ended up adding 3/4 of an inch back onto this side, and that's what all the tape is. And so now that fits. We could actually shorten the top here a little bit more, and I think I will, and that'll kind of pull it up a little bit. And I'm not sure how I'm going to mount this to this yet. I mean, it'd be simple, 2 bolts and 2 nuts. So right now with the dash out, super easy to put this in and put the nuts and everything on it. But later on, that could be troublesome. So I'm thinking what I want to do is probably try and put some nut zerts in here in the black plate and drill from underneath. That way you could screw in from underneath, and if you had to take this off, you take those 2 screws off, you can lift this out of the way. So we'll kind of play with that here in a minute, but I think I am going to shorten the back of this. You know, right now it was 1.5 inches, so probably shorten it down to 1 inch just to clean it up a little bit around the corners, and then we'll be ready to go ahead and put this. And so we're going to go 1 inch and 1.1/8 because that's what this ruler is. And that's, since we're just picking an arbitrary number, around the corners. All what I'm going to do is go in there, mark it with this. I'll just use some pencil lead on the nut zerts, and then shove this up against it, get it level, and then just rub my thumb over it or whatever. There's plenty of dirt on my hands already. So that's going to sit like that. That's going to be like that, and mount in the car. The firewall is here, and the cowl angle is like that, and then it kind of curves back again, and then the dash would be parallel to this out here. So let me transfer those 2 marks, and then we'll get this made out of some kind of metal. All right, so here's how it worked out. Holes in it, and everything fits. There it is, drawn out, and we're gonna get this cut out and then fold it, drill the holes. Actually, let's drill the holes first. Let's put this in a vise. It's funny when you'll work twice as hard as you need to trying to do something that if you just use the right tool, it's not that hard. There we go. So now we just need to bend it on that spot right there. There's a couple ways we could do it. We could slide it in here. It almost fits. We could do it this way. We could take it out, and I have a bender out in the other building where I'm not going to take the camera because of my foot. So I'm going to run out there, fold this, and I'll be right back. There we have it. From that to that to that, and this will mount on top of it. So all I've got to do now is figure out my mounting situation for this plate, and probably paint that up black, test fit it first, but paint it up black and get that installed in the car. Get you a shot of that so we can see how we changed everything just to make it accessible for our plug when we go to program that. Okay, so sorry for the camera. One last thing I forgot to show you guys last night was this rib that I put in the bracket, and that's to keep this from ever basically unfolding. And the way I do that, so please excuse my very filthy workbench. Anyway, so to make that little dent or rib, if you will, just take a piece of angle iron, cut a notch out of it, and then I file the edges so it rounds a little bit, try and keep it from splitting the sheet metal. And then I marked the center. You can see kind of the remnants of a black line in there where I wanted it. Same on this side. I laid it on here, and then I lined up the hole where I wanted it, and then I marked the outside edges of the angle. I lay that on there. I made this piece a long time ago for helping me do other kinds of folds, and get this in place. Sit the male side of our die, if you will, on there, and then just pull down. And I made that a pretty big rib. It's probably excessive for what I need. And because this is sheet metal, it leaves a little bit of a fold. So then the last step is you kind of got to come in here with a hammer and straighten things back out. That's just one more little step then to make this very rigid. You can't, I mean, I'm trying and I can't really unbend it. So you could still bend it out here somewhere, but it really improves the strength, and it's a really simple process. This took maybe, I cut it on the bandsaw, cut 2 slices, and then just drilled a hole through both sides, then used a file to clean it up. Took 10 minutes. This, like I said, has been around for a long time. It's just a piece of 2-inch flat bar. I think that's 2-inch with a ground edge on it that's not sharp. It's just beveled. And then I welded a piece of box that's just a little smaller, a little larger than my press to get that in there. And it doesn't take a lot of force to get that. So one more little step, and then this now can get painted and be ready to be installed in the car. Well, there we have it. One bracket mounting our Lingenfelter box, allows our cord to go through it so we can plug in the other end of USB cable into a laptop for programming. Currently we're only planning to use 2 or 3 channels, but we have 4 available, so they're all run into this plug over here, which I realize you can barely see on the edge of the camera there. Let's see. So all 4 wire sets run into this plug that'll be behind the dash. This plugs in, and actually, so the dash plugs in with this plug for the wipers, this plug for mostly for headlights, and there's a couple of indicator lights that are over on this side, so that plugs in there. And then we have stereo way over here. So there's quite a bit going on behind this dash, but we've made it all modular where the dash can be taken in and out without having to rewire a big chunk of the car. So this just means that we can program everything, and if we need functionality in the future, we can get back in here and program this without fighting to get into it. That's it for this week. Thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoyed the video. Oh, and I had one more special feature. It's been a while since somebody asked, but I used to get quite a few questions about how long this stuff took. So we could subtract 5-10 minutes maybe for moving cameras around and some of the voiceover. But other than that, it took 1 hour and, we'll stop the clock, 1 hour and 41 minutes. Call it -10, we'll call it even -11. 1 hour and 30 minutes to design, lay out, make the bracket, cut the holes in it, and prepare it for this video. I probably have, well, I have an hour and 41 involved, so there you go. It's a nearly a 2-hour project to make a small bracket like that, and that's, you know, me working straight through. So somebody was asking how long this stuff takes. That gives you an idea. And get out there in your shop. If it's taking you that long, you're not behind. You're just working at a pace that everybody else does. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching Allison Customs Project Car TV. Like us on Facebook and check us out at AllisonCustomsOnline.com.